2 Kings 6. Elisha makes an ox head flat. One day the prophet said to Elisha, "The place where we meet with you is too small. Why don't we build a new meeting place near the Jordan River? Each of us could get some wood. Then he could build it." "That's a good idea," Elisha replied. "Get started. Aren't you going with us?" one of the prophets asked. "Yes, I will," Elisha answered, and he left with them. They went to the Jordan River and began chopping down trees. While one of the prophets was working, his axe head fell off, dropped into the water. "Oh," he shouted, "Sir, I borrowed this ox. Where did it fall in?" Elisha asked. The prophet pointed to the place, and Elisha cut a stick and threw it into the water at the spot. The axe had floated to the top of the water. "Now get it," Elisha told him, and the prophet reached in and grabbed it. Elisha stopped an invasion of the Syrian army. After time, when the king of Syria was at war against the Israelites, he met with his officers and announced, "I've decided where we will set up camp." Each time, Elisha would send this warning to the king of Israel: "Don't go near there. That's where the Syrian troops have set up camp." So the king would warn the Israelite troops in that place to be on guard. The king of Syria was furious when he found out what was happening. He called in his officers and asked, "Which one of you has been telling the king of Israel our plans?" "None of us, Your Majesty," one of them answered. "It's an Israelite named Elisha. He's a prophet, so he can tell his king everything, even what you say in your own room." "Find out where he is," the king ordered. "I will send the soldiers to bring him here." They learned that Elisha was in the town of Bodan and reported it to the king. He ordered his best troops to go there with horses and carriages. They marched out during the night and surrounded the town. When Elisha's servant got up the next morning, he saw that Syrian troops had the town surrounded. "Sir, what are we going to do?" he asked. "Don't be afraid," Elisha answered. "There are more troops on our side than on theirs." Then they prayed, "Lord, please help him to see." And the Lord let the servant see that the hill was covered with fiery horses and flaming carriages all around Elisha. As the Syrian army came closer, Elisha prayed, "Lord, make those soldiers blind." And the Lord blinded them with a bright light. Elisha told the enemy troops, "You've taken the wrong road and are in the wrong town. Follow me. I'll lead you to the man you're looking for." Elisha led them straight to the capital city of Samaria. When all those soldiers were inside the city, Elisha prayed, "Lord, now let them see again." Then Lord let them see that they were standing in the middle of Samaria. The king of Israel saw them and asked Elisha, "Should I kill them, sir?" "No," Elisha answered. "You didn't capture these troops in battle, so you have no right to kill them. Instead, give them something to eat and drink and let them return to their leader." The king ordered a huge meal to be prepared for Syria's army, and when they finished eating, he let them go. For a while, the Syrian troops stopped invading Israel's territory. King Ben-Hadad of Syria attacked Samaria. Sometime later, King Ben-Hadad of Syria called his entire army together. Then they marched to Samaria and attacked. They kept up the attack until there was nothing to eat in the city. In fact, a donkey's head cost 80 pieces of silver, and a small bowl of pigeon droppings cost 5 pieces of silver. One day, as the king of Israel was walking along the top of the city wall, a woman shouted to him, "Please, your majesty, help me. Let the Lord help you." The king said, "Do you think I have grain or wine to give you?" Then he asked, "What's the matter anyway?" The woman answered, "Another woman and I were so hungry that we agreed to eat our sons. She said, if we ate my son one day, we could eat hers the next day. So yesterday we cooked my son and ate him. But today, when I went to her house to eat her son, she had hidden him." The king tore off his clothes in sorrow, and since he was on top of the city wall, the people saw that he was wearing sackcloth underneath. He said, "I pray that God will punish me terribly if Elisha's head is still on his shoulders by this time tomorrow." Then he sent a messenger to Elisha. Elisha was home at the time, and the important leaders of Israel were meeting with him. Even before the king's messenger arrived, Elisha told the leaders, "The murderer is sending someone to cut off my head. When you see him coming, shut the door and don't let him in. I'm sure the king himself will be right behind him." Before Elisha finished talking, the messenger came up and said, "The Lord had made all these terrible things happen to us. Why should I think he will help us now?" Elisha answered, "I have a message for you. The Lord promised that tomorrow, here in Samaria, you will be able to buy a large sack of flour or 2 large sacks of barley for almost nothing." The chief officer there with the king replied, "I don't believe it. Even if the Lord sent a rainstorm, it couldn't produce that much grain by tomorrow. You will see it happen, but you won't eat any of the food." Elisha warned him, "The Syrian army stops its attack." About the same time, 4 men with leprosy were just outside the gate of Samaria. They said to each other, "Why should we sit here, waiting to die? There's nothing to eat in the city, so we would starve if we went inside. But if we stay out there, we will die for sure. Let's just sneak over to the Syrian army camp and surrender. They might kill us, but they might not." That evening, the four men got up and left for the Syrian camp. As they walked toward the camp, the Lord caused the Syrian troops to hear what sounded like the roar of a huge cavalry. The soldiers said to each other, "Listen, the king of Israel must have hired the Hittite and Egyptian troops to attack us. Let's get out of here." So they ran out of their camp that night, leaving their tents and horses and donkeys. When the four men with leprosy reached the edge of the Syrian camp, no one was there. They walked into one of the tents, where they ate and drank before carrying off clothes, as well as silver and gold. They hid all this, then walked into another tent. They took what they wanted and hid it too. They said to each other, "This isn't right. Today is a day to celebrate, and we haven't told anyone else what had happened. If we wait until morning, we will be punished. Let's go to the king's palace at once and tell the good news." They went back to Samaria and shouted up to the guards at the gate, "We've just come from the Syrian army camp, and all the soldiers are gone. The tents are empty, and the horses and donkeys are still tied up. We didn't see or hear anybody." The guards reported the news to the king's palace. The king got out of bed and said to his officers, "I know what those Syrians are doing. They know we are starving, so they are hiding in the field, hoping we will go out to look for food. When we do, they can capture us and take over our city." One of these officers replied, "We have a few horses left. Why don't we let some men take 5 of them and go to the Syrian camp and see what's happening? We are going to die anyway, like those who have already died." They found 2 chariots, and king commanded the men and find out what had happened to the Syrian troops. The men rode as far as the Jordan River. All along the way they saw clothes and equipment that the Syrians had thrown away as they escaped. Then they went back to the king and told him what they had seen. At once the people went to the Syrian camp and carried off what was left. They took so much that a large sack of flour and 2 large sacks of barley sold for almost nothing, just as the Lord had promised. The king of Israel had put his chief officer in charge of the gate, but he died when the people trampled him as they rushed out of the city. Earlier, when the king was at Elisa's house, Elisa had told him that flour or barley would sell for almost nothing. But the officer refused to believe that even the Lord could do that. So Elisa warned him that he would see it happen, but would not eat any of the food. And that's exactly what happened. The officer was trampled to death. 2 Kings 8. The woman from Sunem is given back her land. Elisa told the woman whose son he had brought back to life, "The Lord has warned that there will be no food here for 7 years. Take your family and go live somewhere else for a while." The woman did exactly what Elisa had said and went to live in Palestine territory. She and her family lived there 7 years. Then she returned to Israel and immediately begged the king to give back her house and property. Meanwhile, the king was asking Gehazi, the servant of Elisa, about amazing things Elisa had been doing. While Gehazi was telling him that Elisa had brought the dead boy back to life, the woman and her son arrived. "Here's the boy, your majesty," Gehazi said, "and this is his mother." The king asked the woman to tell her story, and she told him everything that had happened. He then said to one of his officers, "I want you to make sure that this woman gets back everything that belongs to her, including the money her crops had made since the day she left Israel." Barzillai kills Ben-Hadad. Sometime later, Elisa went to the capital city of Damascus to visit King Ben-Hadad of Syria, who was sick. And when Ben-Hadad was told he was there, he said to Barzillai, "Go meet with Elisa, the man of God, and get him to ask the Lord if I will get well, and take along a gift for him." Hazael left with 40 camels loaded of the best things made in Damascus as a gift for Elisa. He found the prophet and said, "Your servant, King Ben-Hadad, wants to know if he will get well. Tell him he will." Elisa said to Barzillai, "But the Lord has already told me that Ben-Hadad will definitely die." Elisa stared at him until Hazael was embarrassed. Then Elisa began crying. "Sir, why are you crying?" Hazael asked. Elisa answered, "Because I know the terrible things you will do to the people of Israel. You will burn down their walled cities and slaughter their young men. You will even crush the head of their babies and rip open their pregnant women. How could I ever do anything like that?" Hazael replied, "I'm only a servant and don't have that kind of power. Hazael, the Lord has told me that you will be the next king of Syria." Hazael went back to Ben-Hadad and told him, "Elisa said that you will get well." But the very next day, Hazael got a thick blanket. He soaked it in water and held it over Ben-Hadad's face until he died. Uzziah then became king. King Jehoram of Judah, Jehoram son of Jehoshaphat, became king of Judah in Yoram. It's the 5th year as king of Israel, while Jehoshaphat was still king of Judah. Jehoram was 32 years old when he became king, and he ruled 8 years from Jerusalem. Jehoram disobeyed the Lord by doing wrong. He married Ahab's daughter and was as sinful as Ahab's family and kings of Israel. But the Lord refused to destroy Judah because he had promised his servant David that someone from his family would always rule in Judah. While Jehoram was king, the people of Edom rebelled and chose their own king. So Jehoram and his cavalry marched to Jair, where the Edomite army surrounded him and his commanders. During the night he attacked the Edomite, but he was defeated, and his troops escaped to their homes. Judah was never ever able to regain control of Edom. Even the town of Rimnah rebelled at the time. Everything else Jehoram did while he was king is written in the history of the kings of Judah. Jehoram died and was buried beside his ancestor in Jerusalem. His son Ahaziah then he became king. King Ahaziah of Judah. Ahaziah, son of Jehoram, became king of Judah in the 12th year of Jehoram's rule in Israel. Ahaziah was 22 years old when he became king, and he ruled from Jerusalem for only 1 year. His mother was Athaliah, a granddaughter of King Amori of Israel. Since Ahaziah was related to Ahab's family, he acted just like them and disobeyed the Lord by doing wrong. Ahaziah went with King Joram of Israel to attack King Hazael and the Syrian troops at Ramoth in Gilead. Joram was wounded in the battle, so he went to the town of Jezreel to recover. Ahaziah went there to visit him.